What's up, motherfucker? You want to learn and master the Rossolimo system? Let's keep in this video because Volodar Murzin in the first round of the European Chess Club Cup, he dominated the perfection the Rossolimo. So let's see the ideas and the typical plan that he made in this game. Okay, e4, c5, knight f6, knight c6, bishop e5. That's the Rossolimo variation. Here black have many moves like d6, c6, knight f6, c5. But okay, g6 was the main move. And here short castle was another option, but bishop takes c6. That's the principal idea of the Rossolimo. Goes bishop b5 to take on c6 and had a better pawn structure. Give the bishop pair to have a better pawn structure simply. He takes c6, the main move, d3, bishop g7, and here h3 and sword castle are the main moves. But Murzin came with a not novelty but a not common move with a4. There are not many games in this specific position, but a4 is so typical in this line. Uh, okay, the typical moves are like h3, but like 2 or 3 moves later, always white plays a4 to benefit white. So a4, and here the better response was a5, and you could think in which this benefits white. Okay, the include of a4, a5 moves benefit white in the majority of the Rossorimos. Why? Because, for example, no, the knight is landing on c4, and the breakthrough with b5 is always bad, because keep these 2 pawns weak, for example, and then this pawn is going to be under attack. And white don't have the 3 rank to pass the rook in one moment. The a5 pawn is going to be weak, so in general, it's not a huge difference, but the presence of the move a4, a5 benefits black. And sometimes black after a4 is not going to play a5. Sometimes some players just develop other pieces to and just allow in a5. So if your opponent gives you the opportunity, fix the queen side with a5. Great move, taking more space. And now, like I told, now the rook can pass for via a4 to checkmate the white king, the black king, sorry. And you can think that this is too far to happen, but in some game happened. I had one game like 3 years ago that I checkmate my opponent just playing rook a4 in some lines with a5 and just came with the rook to h4. So the a5 move was so useful. Apart, the c5 pawn now is going to be weak because b6 is never possible because you can simply take. So now the c5 pawn is going to be so weak. And in general, the a5 pawn was so useful in this type of position. Okay, here Christopher goes with bishop g4, just trading like the square bishop. I don't like this move because, okay, it's true that here black bishop pair is not so effective. But if you trade it, you have zero advantage in the position. And apart, I have the spatial advantage in the queen side with a5. I have black, white have better structure, so with black, the only thing that you have is the bishop pair. And if you trade it, I think that white have zero problems. I prefer it a bit here, short castle, h3, queen c7, and rook d8, but now knight c3 and followed by bishop e3, attacking the c5 pawn, and white is completely fine. Okay, bishop c4, g4, of course, knight e2. We should recapture on f3 with the knight, short castle. Always after bishop g4, the response was knight e2, followed by h3, and just take with the knight. That's the typical response with white. 97. Here white had many ways to play. One was just h4, followed by h5 and attack there. With h5, queen e2, or just queen e2 directly. But I like the plan who Murzin employs. For castle, e5. Here he can go with bishop e3 directly, but bishop g5 was a good move. Now, provoking f6. Of course, black can just go to c7, but the problem of the move f6 is that maybe black can think that the e5 pawn is now more defending or something, but you are open your light square. So I don't like the e5 pawn. It's not that it's blocking your bishop, because your bishop is completely blocked with f5, but you are opening your light square. For that reason, Murzin provokes the move f6. Now he plays the bishop. We're on e3. And now the white has 2 plans. One was queen e1 to queen c3. The other was queen e1 to play b4. And yes, specifically it's just put pressure on c5 and in one moment, for example, prepare with rook fb1 and break with c4. With b4, sorry. That's the white plan. Uh, Attack c5 and break with c4. And after break with b4, sorry, now the b7 pawn is going to be weak thanks to the great a5 pawn. So queen e7, queen e1, f5. And what happened in the Rossolimo after f5? That now the e5 pawn becomes so weak. So always a good reaction after f5 was bishop d2. This was automatic, going to c3 with the bishop. That happened in a set game 1 year ago, but I play bad that game. But when my opponents play a5, I just should play bishop d2, bishop c3, or bishop c1, bishop b2, depends on where the b2 pawn was. But always against f5, just relocate the bishop, going to c3. Queen c3 was another possible here. First, bishop d2, f4, bar is preventing f4 because if black is going to play f4 at the same way, just first go back with the bishop. And now he cannot attack, of course, more the b pawn, so he decides to open great breakthrough, very important breakthrough before. That's a great move. Black, the best black response was just take c5, bishop c3, but now let's see. White have all his pawn on the different color of his bishop, and black have all his central pawn in the same square of this bishop. Maybe this position with a bishop on c8 or on e6 would be better for black to attack that. But attacking the king side without the light square bishop was simply impossible. It's like a king's Indian without the bishop, light square bishop, black cannot attack your king. Rook f8, here good, taking here, knight f8, trying to go to e6 and take on c5 with the knight, and now a6, good move. Activating the rook, now let's see that the a7 pawn was weak, the c6 pawn is weak, so, okay, he just take on c5, but now queen b1, good move. Now the queen is coming to a2 with sec, and attacking this pawn. a6, first bishop b4, queen b5, now queen e2, king e8, and Murzin just take on f8, just making the same strategy like Hari Krishna in the same day. I comment a game of Hari Krishna of yesterday where he played with the idea of have a good knight against a bad bishop, and he exploited that advantage. So if you want, you can see the game. Murthy makes the same idea. Just keep the bishop to have a good knight. Now the knight can look straight on f3, but he's attacking e5 and can go to c4 if he wants. And this bishop is also bad. So for that reason, Murthy made the same idea of Hari Krishna. Rook b1, queen c5, rook b7, and now let's see. Black position is completely hopeless. Have a very bad bishop, and the a7 pawn is falling. Rook b8. Here, rook c7 was possible, but okay, rook e5 was fine. Queen e6, just take the pawn. White have a pawn up, and the e5 pawn is weak. The black king is weak. The c6 pawn is weak. Rook f8, rook b7, rook b8, rook a7, and just queen e5, and just queen takes a5, and here Christopher Brookes resigns. Very good game of moving to instructive first. Understand the typical plan of first the first typical plan of Rossolimo, who is a45. Learn this typical way to play. Then the typical reaction after bishop d4, who is knight d2 and h3, with the recapture with the knight. So castle, and now let's see first the provoking f6, and then let's see this plan of queen e1 to go to e3 to c3, or to just prepare it before bishop, and after f5 always useful bishop d2 before, and now the typical breakthrough before. Great, just taking e6 breaking, and now the last touch of the game, bishop before, and then bishop takes f8, just keeping black with the only minor pieces, the bad bishop. So very good game of Volodar Murzin, sorry, so how to play the Rossolimo, and so with many typical plan. In the third round of the European Club Cup, I really like this game of Murzin and the other of Hari Krishna. So if you want to see the Hari Krishna game, see the video. Bye bye, motherfuckers.